Ciao, ciao, benvenute e benvenuti al secondo giorno di BitCamp, Shaping Companies Culture Through Collaboration and Knowledge Sharing. And for our English speakers, hi and welcome to the BitCamp. Welcome Jeremy, who is on stage with us. I'll introduce you in a minute. In the meanwhile, ciao. I'm going to give a small introduction in Italian and then try and translate it in English. Quindi siamo qui per questa seconda giornata di BitCamp, la conferenza remota di Fifth Bit, che per il secondo anno consecutivo ci accompagna verso le vacanze di Natale, facendoci confrontare un po' con la community attorno ad alcuni temi che sentiamo molto caldi. Quest'anno, come sapete, è la volta delle comunità di pratica, quindi per questo il titolo dell'evento. Ieri abbiamo avuto con noi Daniel Zuc e Josephine Wong, Emanuela Damiani, Luciana De Laurentiis e abbiamo parlato di cultura aziendale, rompere i silos e pratiche collaborative, team remoti, inclusività. E oggi proseguiremo il discorso con Jeremy, che è qui con noi, e Emily Weber e Domenico Polimeno. Per chi magari si è aggiunto oggi e non ha partecipato ieri, vi do soltanto qualche breve informazione di contesto e tecnica per permettervi di fruire dell'evento al meglio. Visto che i primi due interventi saranno in inglese, vi ricordo che potete abilitare una funzionalità di Zoom che si chiama trascrizione dal vivo. La trovate nella bottom bar vicino a domande e risposta. Se ci cliccate, insomma, avrete due possibilità. Una è quella di vedere i sottotitoli mentre le persone parlano, l'altra invece è quella di vedere come se fosse una chat sulla destra dello schermo, e Zoom cercherà anche di captare chi è che sta parlando e insomma potrebbe essere comodo per aiutarvi a seguire gli interventi in inglese. Vi ricordo ovviamente potete usare la chat per parlare a tutti, selezionate panelisti e spettatori, altrimenti l'impostazione default dovrebbe essere soltanto panelist e quindi vi leggeremo soltanto noi che siamo on stage. Per le sessioni di Q&A un po' più strutturate, dopo ogni intervento utilizzeremo un tool che si chiama Mentimeter e di cui Antonello vi manderà un codice e un reminder, insomma, all'inizio di ogni intervento. Colgo l'occasione per ripresentarvi Antonello, che è il nostro angelo custode / capro espiatorio che ci risolverà tutti i problemi. E ultimo piccolo reminder, se qualora voleste insomma ritwittare, scrivere sui social, spammare cose, usate l'hashtag BitCamp. Prima di introdurre Jeremy, faccio un piccolo switch in inglese. To say hi again and welcome to the second day of BitCamp. So yesterday we talked with our guests about company's culture, how to break silos, collaborative practice, remote teams, and inclusivity. And those are also the themes that we are going to tackle in this second day together with Jeremy, Emily Weber, and Domenico Polimeno. I'll let the audience know that we can use the transcripts from Zoom, which will help us follow our English-speaking guests. We also have the chat, and we can read all the messages after our guest speaking. And we will use for the Q&A sessions a tool that is called Mentimeter. People will write their questions and also have the possibility to vote the other ones. And I will pick the ones that are maybe more interesting or more voted, and I will report them to the guests. We also have an hashtag for social media that is #BitCamp, so we can use that. And now I'm going to introduce you to Jeremy, che è Senior Interaction Designer in GDS, Government Digital Service in Inghilterra. Non so se avete sentito parlare di GovUK. Jeremy ha lavorato moltissimo in questi anni su come rendere efficaci, partecipate e inclusive le design critique e ha ideato anche un format chiamato Get Feedback e ci parlerà quindi oggi appunto di design critique, come renderle un safe space e come l'hanno fatto appunto con il governo UK. So let's welcome Jeremy Yun, Senior Interaction Designer in GDS, a government digital service. As he say, he designs things that help people. And in the past years, he worked a lot around the topic of design critiques. And today he will share with us learnings on how to make them effective, inclusive, and also collaborative. So let's start this second day of BitCamp, and I leave the word to Jeremy. Hi.
Hello. Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for letting me talk at BitCamp this year. It's a real honor. So hopefully I can do some justice and part with some useful information that you can take back home to your studios. So I am going to attempt to share my screen. Okay.
Interesting. It's loading.
Yeah. This is new. This isn't. Yeah. This doesn't happen yesterday. Of course, it happens now. Hang on a second. Please restart your audio sharing application. Huh.
The joy of being live. Yeah.
Exactly. Let me see what happens if I do this.
Oh yeah, we are. Great.
Yeah, that's worked. Okay. Hopefully. Awesome. Cool. All right. Looks all good here. Yeah. Ciao. Thank you for having me. I used to work with Francesco, who's your head of design, back in 2012. So it's really nice to see what he's built here and what the team has built here. So it's, as I mentioned, an honor to be talking to you. So I am, as Chiara mentioned, Jeremy Yun. I'm a senior interaction designer at Government Digital Service. So I work on things like gov.uk and bits of the design system occasionally and things like that. We sit within the centre of government, within the Cabinet Office, within the UK government. And I'm going to talk to you today about how we built the service for safe and inclusive design critiques within the UK government. So my rough agenda for the talk is going to look something like this. So I'll give you a quick introduction to Government Digital Service, or GDS, as we sometimes like to call it. I'll also give you a quick introduction to the user-centered design community, because we believe that working as a community is one of the best ways to collaborate and share knowledge across the organization and across government. And then I'll get into the meat of the presentation. So talking about design critiques, or design crits for short. Or I looked this up on Google Translate. This probably is wrong, and I apologize in advance for my Italian pronunciation, but critico di progettazione. I hope I got that right. Apologies, my accent is too strong. One of the many things that we do to help build connections and foster community is with our design critiques. So I'll talk to you about what they are, what the benefits of them are, how we run them, and talk about the changes that we've made to them to make them more safe and inclusive for people to join. So, as I mentioned, I work for the Government Digital Service here in the UK government. We are an organisation that is made up of many multidisciplinary teams. So these are teams of designers, developers, user researchers, data experts, content designers, and many more besides. We all work together to help with the digital transformation of the UK government. So what exactly do we do at GDS? You'll probably know us for creating gov.uk. And before gov.uk, we had DirectGov, which was effectively a government portal, alongside hundreds of separate government websites. Each department had their own website. And this caused a lot of confusion for users. It was a bit of a mess in terms of navigating to the correct website in order to complete a task with government. So, for example, if you wanted to start a business, you had to navigate to multiple websites because you had to interact with multiple different parts of government. And so we replaced all these websites, hundreds of websites, 300 plus, maybe more, into just one website, which is what you see now in gov.uk. But it's not the only thing that GDS looks after when it comes to helping with the rest of the government with their digital transformation. We also look at the creation of guidance and standards for the rest of the government to follow to help them create services for users. So, for example, we created design principles. So back in 2012, in the early days of GDS, we established these design principles to help foster best practice and the right culture to be able to create digital services, good, simple, easy to use digital services. And we recently updated the posters, which is nice, which is what you see here, a few years back. So maybe, I think it was 2019 roughly. So you can see things like start with user needs, design with data. This is for everyone. And these posters, by the way, are all open source. So if you want to download them as well, you can do that, and I can share a link at the end of the presentation as well. We also build common platforms so that departments don't have to duplicate work to solve the same problems across government. And we call this work government as a platform. So an example of this is the gov.uk design system, which helps people across government design services using the correct gov.uk styles, components and patterns. And this saves teams across government from having to design from scratch brand new components that another team might have already done already. So we're able to use this as a way to share best practice so that teams don't have to go through that process over and over again. So things are tested for accessibility, and they've gone through multiple rounds of user research to make sure the components are working to the best of their abilities. Another thing we also do is building skills and capability with training and helping upskilling professions across government as well. So over the years, we've trained thousands of people in design, user research, and content design across government and the wider public sector. So these things include courses on introduction to service design in government, introduction to user research in government, and also prototype kit training. So we have a prototype kit, which makes it easy for teams, designers to build quick and dirty coded prototypes of their services. This helps upskill people across government to be able to understand how to design better services and understand how to use the standards and tools that we create to build the best government services that we can. So we've done a lot of great work to date, but we also now have some ambitious new plans. We just released this year a new strategy for the next 4 years, which can be summed up into this statement. So our goal is to build a simple, joined up and personalized experience of government for everyone. And we plan to use our unique position at the center of government to develop services that hopefully just work for the user however complex the underlying systems are within government. And trust me, the underlying systems within government are complicated. There's a lot to get through, so watch this space. But that's a quick whistle-stop tour of GDS and what we do. And onto something that's very close to my heart and everyone's heart here, hopefully. I now want to talk to you about what design looks like within government, specifically the user-centered design, what that looks like in government, or more specifically, the user-centered design community, because really without the community, we cannot achieve our goals of making government services not just better at being digital, but also to be better at creating digital services that are more equitable and empathetic towards its citizens within the UK government. There are more than 3,000 people working across all of the user-centered design disciplines in different departments across government. So that's within user research, design, content design. And despite UCD or user-centered design being relatively new in government, there are now quite a lot of us. Although 3,000 plus only makes up about 1% of the UK civil service. So we could do with hiring some more maybe, but we all work on different multidisciplinary teams on different projects. And even though we might be kind of on our own within a project team, we're all part of the same community. And so we get together in cross-government meetups, a bit like this one in the photo here at the Design Museum in London. And we use those meetups to share our work and learn from each other. And we communicate regularly with each other through Google Groups, Basecamp, and Slack. And occasionally, not all departments are at the same level of their digital maturity. So occasionally there are naturally smaller teams, smaller user-centered design teams within different departments across government. So occasionally there might be just one content designer or one interaction designer working on a team within that small department. And so it's really important for them to feel part of the wider community, of wider government user-centered design community. I think this video, hopefully it works with the sound. Me and Antonello tested it yesterday, so it did work. But this video made by my colleagues probably does a better job of describing what the user-centered design community looks like and what GDS and the wider community does for each other. So hopefully with luck this video works. So if I hit this button, let me know if it doesn't work, but we'll see.
I would say to any new designer coming to government, welcome. You are working in one of the most exciting places in the world for design.
We really genuinely do care about users. They really are the bottom line when it comes to designing services.
The design community is aimed at graphic designers, service designers, interaction designers, or anyone else that's doing design in government.
We have a designer induction course for new designers to help them get oriented. We've got the introduction to service design, which helps anyone in the public sector and particularly civil servants who's interested in service design find out what it is and how it works.
You're trying to learn new design principles, you're trying to learn the style guide, you're trying to learn all this stuff, and the community is really helpful for that because normally any question you have, somebody's already asked it before.
When you join the community, you can join a mailing list to ask questions, to share research that you've done, to find out if people are working on similar things to you.
You can bring a piece of work to the Design Crit Day, which we run once a month, put at a table with 4 or 5 peers, design peers from across government, and just get feedback on your work at whatever stage it's at.
You can also join Slack, sign up to newsletters to find out about events and training, and then you can go to cross-government meetups that happen all around the country.
Well, this is the Cross-Government Design Meetup. I think it's number 27. Really exciting event. People come from all over the country and they hear about what's going on in all the departments. Then there's some presentations that are deep dives into particular themes. Today is innovation. I'm really looking forward to that.
I always get a lot of energy from these sort of things. I find in other people who do what you do and being able to talk to them about some of the challenges it's always helpful.
So you can really get a sense of what's going on, and then everyone normally goes to the pub afterwards.
I think the community is such an exciting part of working in government. To be able to have this massive network of people to interact with and to learn from.
You're maybe the only designer on your team, maybe the only designer in your department, and actually there's a growing group of designers out there willing and able and ready to support you.
Communities are the glue for collaboration. They give us strength. They enable knowledge. They enable sharing of knowledge, and they look out for each other. And that's why we have our user-centered design community. And so this brings me nicely on to talk about design critics or critiques. Sometimes called design crits for short. And if you heard closely in the video, Clara mentions design crits as a thing that we do for the community. At the time in the video, which was shot, as you can probably tell, before the pandemic happened, we used to do monthly in-person crits where designers from across government would come to the office to get their work critiqued. And this was a one-day thing within the London office, where designers right across the country could come and share. And now I want to talk to you about what design crits or critiques are, their benefits, and how we made them into a safe and inclusive thing that people across the community can use and get involved in. So, to start off with, what are design crits? I was going to ask for a show of hands, but I don't know if I can't. I don't think I can see anyone apart from Chiara and Antonello. So I won't ask who has participated in one before. But I'm going to assume that maybe this might be the first time you've heard of the term design crits or critiques. To summarize, design critiques are a great way for you and your team to share, reflect, and feedback on design work that may be in progress. And what are the benefits of a design crits? So we like to use them because they offer timely feedback. So feedback for the service team to take into account and consider at every phase of the service or product development. So whether that's at the super early stage with sketched out paper prototypes, to a coded prototype, or the live production thing, you could use a design crit at any point during the process to get feedback. Although having said that, the earlier you can get feedback from different people, the more likely you are to squash any blockers or issues that you might not be able to fix later on in the development process. It also helps to build shared understanding. So your team and stakeholders can get an understanding of current thinking around the problem. They give the whole team an early view of what's coming up. There is something concrete for everyone to look at. So it's easy to identify research problems or gaps in our knowledge. They bring all disciplines together, so work isn't compartmentalized, so we don't fall into our silos, discipline silos, and then stop talking to each other. wait for things to be thrown over the wall. We need to break those walls down. And they facilitate dialogue when we have to make decisions as a team. They also help to bring in fresh perspectives. So they give everyone a voice and lets different disciplines, each with their own lens, to contribute to the design process. So this helps everyone contribute to the work. And often someone else across the department or government has already solved the same problem as you, or is working to solve the same problem as you. So sometimes bringing in someone from outside the project team can bring alternative ways to solving the problem at hand. Also provides an opportunity to learn more about user-centered design. So they're a great opportunity for all disciplines to learn about what user-centered design is, and also from other user-centered design practitioners to learn from each other. And also learn from other disciplines who are not user-centered design. So for example, learning about how a design might fit within a particular technology. And also enabling people that aren't a user-centered design practitioner to be part of the design process and start to understand how a designer works. Another benefit, especially within our context, is learning about work in different areas of the public sector. So design crits are a great way to see what work is happening across the public sector. It's a chance to learn about different approaches, methods, and tools, to learn from how others have tackled challenges. And it's a great way to practice presenting your work and giving feedback on other people's work. And also meeting people. So design crits are a good opportunity to meet people from the user-centered design community in a safe and inclusive environment. You can connect with people working in similar roles, service areas, or problem spaces. Because the sessions now are remote, we are able to connect people up from different parts of the country and even different parts of the world as well. In the first pilot session that we did, we had someone from the Australian government present their work, which was just amazing to see. So yeah, it's really helps to build the networks and break down any barriers. But I hear you say in my head, how does this all work remotely? You may have noticed all our images so far have been in person, but we had to do a lot of work to make them work in now pandemic and hybrid ways of working. So this image here is of a service map of the iterations that we did based on the previous versions of our in-person design crits. As I mentioned before, the cross-government crit day sessions were run for a full day in a classroom environment, and were designed to help teach participants how to run a design crit and get feedback on their work. And fortunately, just before the pandemic and all of the lockdowns started to happen, we sent out a survey to understand how our users were feeling about the design crits at that moment in time, and what they found useful about them and what they found to be painful about them as well. And from that work, we were able to create a remote friendly version of the design crit days and build something that was also more safe and inclusive for participants. I have to say that this has been the work of a group of people, both within GDS and other departments, who have worked on developing and iterating this new format. So I'm presenting on all of this work on behalf of the team. So if you get a chance to follow any of these people on Twitter, please do. They are all amazing, and I've learnt so much from them over the years. They are all awesome. I'll try and share Twitter handles maybe after the presentation. And so from that work that we did to come up with a new version, we came up with something that looks like this. So we changed the format of the Design Crit sessions to be shorter. Previously, they were a full day, so people had to take out a full day of their time to attend one. It now works remotely, and it can be run weekly, every Wednesday, by anyone across the public sector and government. And for the past year and a half, we've been running pilot sessions of this new remote format for design critiques, which we now call Get Feedback. So we're constantly iterating over time. So how do they work? Sessions are done over a video call and last for 90 minutes, and they're split up into 3 parts. The first 30 minutes of the session consists of a collective agreement and a review of good practice when it comes to asking for, getting and giving feedback. This is designed to help create a safe space for all participants and alleviate any anxieties that anyone might have. It also tries to show what good looks like to people who may not have done a design critique before. Then the next hour is split into 2 halves. The first half is all about context setting. So we have created a project summary card to help presenters define their work and the type of feedback they want. This helps to provide context to the project and also helps to focus conversations on the parts of the work that the presenter wants feedback on. And then the second half of that hour is devoted to giving feedback on the work. Getting a design crit can be scary though, and it can be quite nerve-wracking. I know when I first started doing them, it was it was scary for me. And as a designer, you're making yourself vulnerable. You're putting yourself out there. If someone joins a quit, for example, but doesn't understand how to give feedback correctly, they can end up hurting their colleagues, which definitely is not helpful to anyone. And so a lot of our work in improving the crits was focused around how do we create a more safe and inclusive culture when getting or giving or receiving feedback about your work. So one of the things we did was, as you probably noticed, we renamed it. So one of the first things we did was to change the name of design crits or design critiques to Get Feedback, to make it sound less intimidating, especially to anyone that might not have done a design crit before. Helping it to keep it simple, plain English. This is what it does, which hopefully makes it more understandable and less sort of masculine as well. So in the dictionary, when I looked up the word critique, it said a detailed analysis and assessment of something, which sounds pretty intense. And I don't really want someone to be giving me a detailed analysis and assessment of me. So at the end of the day, all we want to do is get feedback, get the right feedback and get constructive feedback so we can make improvements to our work. Another thing we did was create a facilitator role. So as well as having a presenter of the work who's getting the feedback and the feedback givers who are giving the feedback, we thought to create a facilitator role which helps to ensure that the space is safe and inclusive. So they take the cognitive burden off the presenter of the work to have to manage the session. And they are also responsible for leading the session and ensuring that things are run to time. We also included a code of conduct, and the facilitator ensures that the participants know about it and adheres to it as well. And we also created a structure, as I mentioned, the 90-minute structure, 3-part structure, and a slide deck for facilitators to use and govern the session to ensure that all participants are able to get what they need from each session. This helps to lower the barriers to entry as well. So everything is set up for anyone across government to pick it up themselves and use straight away. As I mentioned as well, we also include the collective agreement. So this is a short but very, very important activity that we do at the start of all sessions. And I recommend, if you ever do any like workshops or collaborative meetings, to include one of these, because they can help get everyone on the same page and help create a kind of makes everyone aware of the type of culture that we want within that session. So as it says on the slide deck, what behaviors can we all sign up to make sure today is useful and safe for everyone here? We like to keep the numbers of participants low, so no more than 6 people. And this keeps the sessions from becoming a presentation rather than a discussion. So it helps create a less intimidating environment for the presenter. It's so easy that the dynamics of the meeting don't change into a presentation where the presenter ends up talking for the entire session and in the end does not get any feedback to help them. It's a fine line between presenting a thing and getting feedback about a thing. People can also sign up to observe if you'd like to experience how the sessions run. So anyone that is not familiar with the format or not familiar with design critiques or how to get feedback about their work, to help them build confidence and get a better understanding of what the sessions look like, we invite people to observe sessions before they take the deep dive into a session for themselves. And we encourage people that want to become facilitators, excuse me, or want to be a presenter or to give feedback, to come along and observe. And give people different ways to contribute to the session. So another thing that we do is offer up different opportunities during the session for people that might, might be more introverted voices within a session, who might not speak up as much as someone who might be more extroverted. We have 5 or 10 minutes, we say 5 or 10 minutes at the end of each session to, in silence, have some quiet reflective time so that people in their own time can reflect back in their own minds about the feedback that they might have been given or any questions or suggestions that they might not have been able to give during the session. So we ensure that everyone is able to have a voice and have the opportunity to give some feedback if they couldn't. And we also, and you'll notice this a lot about GDS, especially the design community here, we create a lot of best practice posters to help create a shared understanding of how to get, receive, and give feedback. This helps to get everyone on the same page. It helps to ensure that we share best practice across government, and hopefully helps to build the right culture as well across the community on what a good design critique looks like. So these include things like these posters here, which is about how to best present work. Posters about how to give feedback, and posters about how to present your work and get the most of a feedback session. I have to say kudos to my colleagues, Chris Ballantyne Thomas, and Tom Hughes, who created these posters. They are legends. That's it, pretty much. This work is never going to be done, though. We can always make improvements. At the end of every design crit get feedback session, we include the small retro boards. So we're constantly collecting feedback from participants to help us make continuous improvements to our thing. But hopefully that gives you a good overview of things that we did to help make design crits and get feedback sessions more safe and inclusive for people from community to come along and participate. And to finish, in the spirit of one of our design principles, make things open, it makes things better. All our materials that we use are all open source. So if you'd like to access, if you'd like access to get feedback materials, the templates, just let me know. I can share them with you so that you can use them with your own project work. Although they are, to caveat, in English, so you might need to get someone to translate them for you. And if you want to read more about the work, we also have really good blogs. Our Design Note blog is a really good resource for designers across not just government, but throughout the whole industry. So you can learn more about all our work and what we do and how we share best practice there as well. We also have a Tumblr blog where we keep our posters and GitHub accounts where we store our posters as well. So if you want to download any of these posters and print them off and hang them up at in your offices, in your bedrooms, in your workspaces, then please feel free to do that. And just to end as well, I've got a little cheeky GDS is hiring. If you are, we're hiring for all disciplines at all levels. So if you are interested in our work, although I don't want to steal anyone from Fifbit, so Fifbit are great. It's there at Fifbit as well. But if you are, well, if you are interested, come and join us. I know that we have some service design positions open right now at the moment for midway and senior positions. So yeah, come along, check it out. Happy to answer any questions if you have. And that's it. Thanks for listening. Yeah, hope that was useful.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, Jeremy. You really give us some actionable ideas on how to make design critic work. And yeah, we have some questions from the audience actually. So if you're okay with that, I'm going to pick some of them and yeah, continue to get inspired with you. And for sure, we will share all the materials that you mentioned with the audience at the end of the BitCamp, so that they can continue to read and nourish their minds with all the useful job that all of you did. And thank you. Also, one thing that we were noticing in the chats is that you really gave credit to all your colleagues, and it's something that we really enjoyed and appreciated. So thank you for doing that. It was an inspiration. So starting with the questions, Francesco is asking, how do you manage design best practices to be shared remotely across different teams?
Yes, that's a good question. Fortunately, we have some good channels, online channels that are available to us. And they've been in place since pretty much the beginning. So we have a cross-government Slack channel, which gets used quite a lot. So that connects everyone, pretty much everyone across the UK government, which is amazing. And that's a great place for people to ask questions and share stuff and share best practice. We also have some Google group email groups, so ones that are specific to accessibility, ones that are specific to service design, ones for user research, etc. And so there's that opportunity to, everything is available online in terms of the posters. We try to blog as often as possible. It's a shame that we can't be in the office these days, because some of the posters are great, but some people hang them up in, I should hang one up behind me. I've got lots of space here. But some people hang them up behind them, and so they're able to share them through their video calls as well, which is really sweet.
Okay, thank you. And you spoke about introverts, and that's really a topic that we also talked about yesterday. So how to involve people that are more introverts, and also the ones that are scared to ask and receive for feedback. How do you stimulate their participation?
Yeah, it's through blogging, through talking about our work. One of the hardest things is promoting the work and ensuring that people hear about them. So that's one thing that we're still trying to figure out how best to do. At the moment, we have an automated Slack bot in the Slack channels, who just reminds people that this thing exists, and that we have a Trello board where people can sign up and learn a bit more about what the structure looks like and what the code of conduct is, and how to participate. For new people, we have an opportunity to observe sessions, so they don't have to participate. They can just, there's no pressure on them to participate, so they can kind of, and I sort of come and see what we do, and hopefully that kind of reassures them and gives them confidence that this is something that they can participate in as well. We also, on our Trello boards, it's a shame because it's a private Trello board for public sector people to sign up to, but we have a done column as well. And we, at the end of each session, we put the Trello cards into that column, and we ask participants, especially the people that have presented work, to get feedback. We asked them 2 questions. How did they feel about the experience, to try and get them to share how they felt, and also to share back the work the iterated work once they've applied the feedback to the work as well. So it kind of gives people an idea of, oh, okay, this actually works. This is actually helping other people. Quite often, especially when we used to hold the sessions in person, people at the end of the sessions were reinvigorated and inspired to go out there and do the work again. So I think being able to share that and make that available is really useful in getting people to sign up and not be so scared.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you. And you mentioned a couple of times the code of conduct. Can you go, please, a little bit deeper into that? I'm particularly interested in understanding maybe which is the principle that you care the most and which is the most difficult to put in practice also.
That's a great question. I think the one I care about the most is the respect for each other within the session. I think if that's not said up front, sometimes, and especially if people are not familiar with how to give feedback, and if it suddenly turns, you know, a bit sour and it becomes a critique on the person or a criticism on the person as opposed to the work itself, that's not the point of design crits. We shouldn't be judging people or assuming things about people. So I think just respecting people and their efforts and who they are, and not judging them. It's the work, and we're all in this together. I think one of the hardest things, especially with things going remote, is keeping things as accessible as possible. Like whiteboard tools like Mural, FigJam, Mural, Miro. Then they're all Google Jamboard, especially. They're not all accessible, and there are they are sometimes not the best tools to use for people with access needs. So being conscious about that, the internal tools we use for remote meetings and things like that, we still need to develop, and that's probably the hardest thing, especially when things like online whiteboard tools become the norm and become really popular. You have to kind of take a step back sometimes and make sure, are we including everyone in this work? Otherwise, we're risking losing the people at the edge and then not designing for those people as a result, which is really dangerous.
Yeah, you're really right. And speaking of going remote, how did you have to adapt to this new way of working? Speaking of course, of design critiques.
Going remote, I think because we got lucky with putting the survey out just before the pandemic, we already had in mind that we wanted to turn them into remote sessions. The hardest thing with that was the internet can sometimes be quite a cold, horrible place. Lots of angry people. And so we didn't want to replicate that within remote sessions because it quite easily could be, it could maybe, like, if we didn't keep the numbers low and we had more than 6 people, it starts to become a presentation, and then you start to get people turning their cameras off. You lose a bit of that connection to that person, And so in adapting from going in person to remote, that was one of the things that we had to bear in mind. Like, how might we create these sessions without making them even more scary? Because design critiques, that word, that whole statement, that whole name is quite scary in itself. So breaking that down and making it less intimidating was probably the thing we had to focus on the most in turning this into remote sessions.
Okay, I see. And we have also an interesting question from the audience. If you have a story that happened to your team, and that of course you can share with us, about the difficulty to give or receive a feedback during design crits.
Give an example of a bad time.
Story that you remember and that you can share, of course.
I remember when I first started doing design crits, like, I'm not an extroverted person, I'm quite introverted. And I think one of the things that I struggled with, especially in the early days of my career, was to not be so precious about the work, to sort of have a part of me that disconnects from the work. So that I'm kind of, in my mind, it's better for me not to feel like it's about me, like feedback and criticism or critique on me. So back in those early days, we didn't have any of this structure. I would just have the printouts on whiteboards in the workspace, and I would ask people to just kind of give their thoughts on Post-its. And because I didn't really focus on what type of feedback I wanted, conversations could go off rail and into rabbit holes and into places where I don't actually need feedback on that particular thing. I need feedback on this thing to progress the design work. So yeah, having some structure and having an idea of what exactly you need feedback on. I've learned that now, but back then I didn't know that. And so sometimes the design crit sessions were not very useful, and they'll start going into rabbit holes, and then it started to feel like it was about me. So a word of advice: don't be precious. But it's not easy. It takes time to learn that, I think.
Sure, and maybe also now the facilitator role comes into place in order not to go into rabbit holes, as you said. And I'm curious to understand which are the must-haves for the facilitator. So which rules do they follow? Which attitudes do they have to take?
So when we first started to create this new version, we thought about training for facilitators. But because we don't, this is sort of a bit of a side project from our project work as well. So it was hard to find the time to be able to do that. And so that's why we have the code of conduct, and on the Trello board, there were instructions of, before the session, these are the things you need to do. During the session, this is what you need to kind of manage. And then after the session, these are the questions that you need to do and ask. It's good for facilitators to have a bit of experience of having done design critiques, because they're not easy sometimes to keep check of. They can easily go down rabbit holes. So having a bit of experience and just being nice and kind and and not a bad person, because and hopefully our code of conduct like outlines like this is what we sign up to. We want to be respectful of people. We want to make sure we include others. We need to make sure we do that. And so if a facilitator can't agree on those, then they shouldn't be facilitators. That sounds quite harsh, but I think if you're a bad person, it's probably not a good idea to come along and do one of these.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing this. We were impressed when you told us that there are 3,000 people working in the user-centered design world for GDS, and some suggestions to be all on the same line. How do you do? There are so many of you doing this sort of job. So how do you stay on the same line?
Yeah, it's not easy. It's through it's through like public speaking. It's through we have a cross-government design meetup every so often, although that's maybe 2 or 3 a year if we're lucky. We're starting to get back into the groove of things, getting used to remote working, hybrid working. We have so the heads of designs are in contact with each other. I know a couple of years back, before the pandemic, we set community objectives. So all of the heads of designs got together and agreed as a community, these are the objectives that we should be aiming for, and we blogged about that. I think since the pandemic, it's been a bit of a reset, and we've been trying to figure out how best to do that. But we're starting to get back into, we do a lot of remote online training. We do monthly talks from different teams, different designers across government, presenting their work as well. So we don't have to rely on a big meetup. And we have all of those videos online as well. #GovDesign as well. So if you're on Twitter, we share a lot on there, and on YouTube as well, we share a lot on there too. So it's definitely not easy. It's, you know, we need some leadership as well. It has to be from top down to help us build these communities, and sometimes that can be quite challenging. So there's a bit of like from the bottom up, remembering to communicate to senior people, senior leadership teams, that communities are super important, and we can't do this work without others, because yeah, it's not one person doing all of this, because I think we would all go crazy otherwise. It's the community that does this work.
Yeah, that's really inspiring. I mean, Fitbit as a company is starting to grow, but these numbers are just overwhelming. And we just try to think, okay, to make community of practices with 50 people, and then you come with 3,000 people, and you are like, whoa.
Although that's across government. So within
right.
GDS, it's a bit smaller, but it's still hundreds within GDS, because we have a big content design team. I forgot to mention as well, we like the guidance, the standards, the principles, the design system, the Gov.uk style guide. I mean, we've been fortunate that we've had, I mean, we're 10 years old now. We had our birthday last month. We're so fortunate to have had, like, from the very beginning, when Frances Maud and Martha Lane Fox wrote revolution or evolution about what we needed to do in the digital space to help digital transformation. If it wasn't for them setting the groundwork and the foundations, it would be too hard. So we were so fortunate to have them at the start and have that type of leadership to set the groundwork. It's been ups and downs since, but we're trying to get there.
Sure, and so good luck also for the future, and happy birthday for the 10 years.
Thank you.
So thank you, Jeremy. I believe we've reached the end of our conversation, but it was really a pleasure talking to you, and it was really an inspiring opening for this second day of BitCamp. So of course, I invite you to stay with us if you want to hear also for the next guests. We will just call a break now for the next 20 minutes, and then we will be on stage with Emily Weber. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you once again, and keep in touch, and good luck for your work on design crits. They're really interesting. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. Hopefully see you all soon again.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Grazie mille a tutti per essere stati con noi per questo primo intervento della seconda giornata del BitCamp. Chiamiamo una piccola pausa di 20 minuti e poi sarà con noi Emily Weber alle 15:30. Quindi ciao a tutti, Antonello ci sparerà la fantastica playlist e ciao Jeremy, grazie. Thank you. Bye.